Trembling with rage, Jamal Washington watched as the flight attendant who just humiliated him bowed respectfully to the white passenger now sitting in his first-class seat. Little did she know, as CEO of Skyline Airways' parent company, tomorrow would be her last day working in aviation. Before we dive deeper into this shocking story, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button if you've ever experienced unfair treatment while traveling, and subscribe to catch more incredible stories of justice served. Now, let's discover how this powerful businessman turned a moment of humiliation into a complete industry transformation. Jamal Washington was no ordinary passenger. At 45 years old, he was the self-made billionaire CEO of Global Ventures International, a multinational conglomerate that had secretly acquired Skyline Airways just 3 months ago. The acquisition had been kept quiet from the public and most employees while Jamal's team conducted internal audits of company culture and practices. Born and raised in the rough neighborhoods of Harlem, Jamal had climbed his way out of poverty through sheer determination. His mother, a hospital janitor, had worked double shifts to keep him in school. Every morning before dawn, young Jamal would help her clean offices before heading to class. Those early mornings taught him the value of hard work and dignity in every job, lessons he carried into his business philosophy. Education is the one thing they can't take from you, his mother would say. Taking those words to heart, Jamal had earned a full scholarship to Columbia, working 3 jobs to cover living expenses. After graduation, he'd started his first tech company in a cramped apartment, building it into $1 million business within 5 years. Now, Global Ventures International owned companies across 17 industries, employing over 70,000 people worldwide. Yet despite his wealth and power, Jamal never forgot his roots. He remained humble, preferring to travel incognito when possible. That's why today, after an exhausting week finalizing deals in Tokyo, Jamal had chosen to dress casually for his flight home to New York. Wearing a simple black hoodie, designer jeans and comfortable sneakers, he looked nothing like the power broker whose face occasionally graced the covers of Fortune and Forbes. His only concession to luxury was the subtle platinum Patek Philippe watch partially hidden under his sleeve, a reminder to himself of how far he'd come. Arriving at Tokyo International Airport 3 hours early, Jamal immediately noticed the subtle shift in treatment. Despite his platinum elite status prominently displayed on his boarding pass, the security staff seemed skeptical, asking him repeatedly if he was in the correct line for priority screening. "Sir, this line is for first-class and elite status passengers only," said the security agent, eyeing his casual attire with obvious doubt. Jamal simply slid his passport and boarding pass forward again. "Yes, I'm aware." The agent's eyebrows raised slightly as she verified his status, reluctantly waving him through with noticeably less courtesy than she'd shown the white businessman ahead of him. At the gate, the pattern continued. The gate agent, a middle-aged Japanese woman in a crisp uniform, squinted at his boarding pass with obvious confusion. "First class," she confirmed, glancing between his face and the document. "Yes," Jamal replied calmly, accustomed to these interactions. "Seat 5A." She nodded slowly, returning his documents with a slight bow that somehow felt less respectful than those she offered other premium passengers. When priority boarding was announced, Jamal gathered his carry-on and laptop bag, joining the small cluster of first-class travelers. He felt the usual stares as he moved forward, the silent questioning of whether he belonged. 23 years of success, and still these moments followed him like shadows. Once on board, Jamal located his window seat in the first-class cabin, stowed his luggage, and settled in. The leather seat was spacious and comfortable, a welcome relief after his packed schedule. He looked forward to 14 hours of uninterrupted rest and preparation for the meetings that awaited him in New York. He'd just opened his tablet when a flight attendant with "Sophie Carlson" on her name tag approached, her smile tight and professional. "Excuse me, sir. May I see your boarding pass?" Jamal produced it without comment. She studied it carefully, longer than necessary, then returned it with a nod that didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you, sir. Can I get you a pre-departure beverage?" Water would be fine, thank you. Sophie returned with his water, placing it on his armrest without a coaster, something he noticed she provided for the white passengers in seats 5B and 5C across the aisle. As other first-class passengers boarded, all white or Asian businesspeople in suits, Jamal observed that none were asked to show their boarding passes again. Yet somehow, Sophie found reasons to pass by his seat repeatedly, each time glancing at him with barely concealed suspicion. When she approached a third time asking to just verify his boarding pass again, Jamal felt the familiar weight of prejudice settling on his shoulders. "Is there a problem with my seat assignment?" he asked quietly. "No, sir. Just routine checks," Sophie replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. Jamal nodded and returned to his tablet, but his peace was already disturbed. He could feel Sophie watching him, whispering to another flight attendant named Lisa Bennett, both glancing his way with expressions that told a story he'd read too many times before. The boarding process was nearly complete when a commotion at the front of the cabin caught everyone's attention. Maxwell Whitfield III, a middle-aged white man in an expensive but rumpled suit, was arguing loudly with the gate agent. Even from several rows away, Jamal could smell alcohol on the man's breath. "This is absolutely unacceptable." Maxwell's voice carried throughout the cabin. "I specifically requested seat 5A. Do you know who I am? My company books hundreds of flights with your airline every year." The gate agent was apologizing profusely, checking her tablet with frantic movements. "I'm very sorry, Mr. Whitfield, but seat 5A was assigned during early check-in yesterday. Your boarding pass shows seat 15A. 15. That's not even first class. This is outrageous." Sophie and Lisa immediately rushed forward, surrounding Maxwell with deferential smiles. Jamal watched as Sophie placed a gentle hand on the irate man's arm, speaking in soothing tones. "Mr. Whitfield, please allow me to help resolve this situation. Why don't you have a seat in 5D temporarily while we sort this out?" Maxwell grudgingly took the offered seat, directly across from Jamal, still grumbling about the incompetence of the airline staff. Sophie promptly brought him a glass of champagne without being asked, then turned to Jamal with a completely different expression, cold and professional. "Excuse me, sir. It appears we have a situation with our seating arrangements." Jamal looked up calmly. "Is there a problem?" "We have a valued Diamond Elite member who was promised seat 5A. There seems to have been a computer error." Jamal raised an eyebrow. "I booked this seat 24 hours ago during early check-in, specifically because I prefer the window. My boarding pass clearly shows 5A, and this is the third time you verified it." Sophie's smile tightened. "Yes, well, sometimes these things happen. Mr. Whitfield flies with us weekly and has certain expectations. Would you mind terribly moving to another seat? We can offer you 7B in the center of first class." "I'd prefer to stay in my assigned seat," Jamal replied firmly. "I selected it specifically for this long flight." Sophie's pleasant facade slipped momentarily, revealing irritation. "Sir, we're trying to accommodate a very important customer." "And what am I?" Jamal asked quietly. The question hung in the air as Sophie turned away without answering, whispering urgently to Lisa. Moments later, Lisa disappeared into the cockpit. Maxwell, who had been watching the exchange while sipping his champagne, leaned over. "Listen, pal, this doesn't have to be difficult. Some people are just more accustomed to certain amenities. I'm sure you'll be perfectly comfortable elsewhere." Before Jamal could respond, the first officer, whose name tag read Taylor, emerged from the cockpit with Lisa trailing behind. He strode directly to Jamal's seat with an air of authority. "Sir, I understand there's an issue with the seating arrangements," Taylor said, addressing Jamal without introducing himself. "There's no issue with my seating arrangement," Jamal replied evenly. "I'm in my assigned seat." Taylor glanced at Maxwell, who was now smugly watching the confrontation, then back to Jamal. "Sir, We need to accommodate Mr. Whitfield in this seat. He's a very valued customer. I have the boarding pass for this seat, Jamal said, producing it once more. I checked in early specifically to secure it. Taylor barely glanced at the boarding pass. I understand, but we need to make an exception in this case. We can move you to economy comfort with extra legroom. Jamal felt his pulse quicken, but kept his voice level. Not first class. You're asking me to move from the first class seat I paid for to economy? Economy comfort, Sophie corrected, as if that made a significant difference. It's the best we can do on this full flight. Jamal looked around the cabin, noting several empty first-class seats. This flight isn't full, and certainly not in first class. Those seats are reserved, Lisa interjected quickly. By now, other passengers were watching the scene unfold. Some had their phones out, recording the interaction. Jamal was acutely aware of how this could appear, a black man being difficult, causing a scene. He'd spent his entire career avoiding such perceptions, knowing how easily they could undermine his authority in the business world. If you continue to refuse, sir, Taylor said, his voice hardening, I'll have to call security to escort you off the aircraft. The threat hung in the air. Jamal knew he had a choice: create a public confrontation that could damage his reputation and company stock value, or swallow this humiliation as he had so many others throughout his life. Fine, he said quietly. I'll move. Taylor nodded curtly, as if he'd expected nothing less. Lisa will show you to your new seat. As Jamal gathered his belongings, he heard Sophie already fawning over Maxwell. Mr. Whitfield, I'm so sorry for the confusion. Please enjoy seat 5A. Can I bring you another glass of champagne? Maxwell's loud reply was intentionally audible to Jamal. Finally, someone who understands customer service. These people need to learn their place. Lisa led Jamal through the luxurious first-class cabin, past business class, and into the cramped economy section. His new seat, 34B, was a middle seat between two other passengers who looked as unhappy about the new arrangement as he was. Enjoy your flight, Lisa said flatly, turning away without another word. Squeezed into the tight space, knees pressed against the seat in front, Jamal took a deep breath and removed his phone from his pocket. What had just happened wasn't just poor customer service. It was something far more insidious, something he'd faced his entire life despite his achievements. Something he now had the power to address. The seatbelt sign had barely turned off when Jamal felt the full weight of his new reality. Wedged between a large man who had claimed both armrests and a teenager with headphones blasting music loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, his knees pressed painfully against the seat in front where a passenger had fully reclined without warning. The contrast to the spacious first-class seat he'd paid for couldn't have been more stark. He shifted uncomfortably, trying to find a position that wouldn't leave him cramped and sore for the 14-hour flight. The teenager beside him shot him an irritated glance, as if Jamal's discomfort was an inconvenience. 2 hours into the flight, the beverage service reached his row. Sophie, who had apparently taken over this section from another flight attendant, approached with the cart. When she recognized Jamal, her eyes narrowed slightly before she plastered on a customer service smile that didn't reach her eyes. Something to drink, she asked, her tone noticeably less friendly than she'd used with previous passengers. Water, please, Jamal replied. As Sophie poured the water, he noticed her hand slip, causing a significant amount to splash onto his lap rather than into the cup. Cold liquid soaked through his jeans. Oh, my apologies, she said without sincerity, tossing a single napkin at him before moving on without offering more assistance. Jamal dabbed at his wet clothes, aware of several passengers watching the interaction. As Sophie moved down the aisle with her cart, he clearly heard her mutter to Lisa, who was working the other aisle. Can you believe he thought he belonged in first class? Probably using someone else's miles. Lisa laughed. Did you see his hoodie? Trying so hard to look like he has money. Their voices carried just enough that several nearby passengers heard the exchange, some looking uncomfortable, others pretending not to notice. A middle-aged white woman across the aisle gave Jamal a sympathetic glance before quickly averting her eyes, unwilling to acknowledge the situation further. Jamal maintained his composure, decades of similar experiences having taught him the futility of visible reactions. Instead, he connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi using his premium business account and opened his encrypted email. 2. Executive Team, Global Ventures International Subject, Urgent, Skyline Airways Situation Encrypted Priority, Alpha experiencing severe discriminatory treatment on Skyline Flight TK-447 from Tokyo to New York. Moving forward with full audit and immediate action plan upon landing. Andre, meet me at gate with legal team. Initiate Protocol Delta for the following staff members. Sophie Carlson, Flight Attendant Lisa Bennett, Flight Attendant First Officer Taylor. Retrieve full name from flight manifest, full details to follow. Prepare for immediate public statement if this escalates on social media. JW. He sent the email, then opened a secure messaging app to contact his chief of staff directly. To Andre Coleman, on Skyline 447. Removed from first class to accommodate white passenger. Crew members Sophie Carlson, Lisa Bennett, First Officer Taylor directly involved. Run complete background checks. Meet me at gate with legal. Bring security team. Do not alert Skyline management yet. As he waited for a response, Jamal closed his eyes momentarily, memories flooding back unbidden. The college professor who'd accused him of cheating because his economic theory paper was too sophisticated. The real estate agent who'd shown him only properties in certain neighborhoods, despite his 7-figure budget. The countless times he'd been followed in high-end stores while shopping for his mother. Success hadn't eliminated these experiences, it had only changed their nature. Now, people questioned his achievements rather than his potential. Suspected his credentials rather than his intentions. 23 years building one of the largest private companies in America, and a flight attendant could still make him feel like an imposter with a single glance. His phone vibrated with Andre's response, already on it. Security team assembled. Legal preparing documentation. I'll be at gate personally. This ends today. Jamal nodded slightly to himself. Yes, this would end today. He pulled out his tablet, navigating to the secure server where the Skyline Airways employee files were stored. As the new owner, he had access to everything, though few at the airline knew about the change in ownership yet. The transition team had been quietly evaluating operations for 3 months, preparing for a full integration and public announcement next quarter. A flight attendant passing by, not Sophie or Lisa, glanced at his screen with casual curiosity, then did a double-take at what was clearly internal company information. Jamal calmly turned the screen away, but not before catching her confused expression. He found Sophie Carlson's file easily. 15 years with the airline. For customer complaints in the past year alone, 3 from minority passengers reporting rude and dismissive treatment. All had been dismissed by her supervisor with minimal investigation. There was also a note about her special attention to high-value customers, apparently code for preferential treatment of certain passengers. First Officer Taylor's file revealed similar issues. James Taylor, with the airline for 8 years, had 2 formal reprimands for unprofessional conduct toward passengers, both involving disputes with minority travelers who had valid first-class tickets. In both cases, Taylor had called security rather than properly verifying documentation. Lisa Bennett's record was cleaner, but showed she primarily worked routes with Sophie and Taylor, part of a preferred team that specifically requested to work together on premium international flights, the routes most likely to have wealthy business travelers. As Jamal continued his research, he became aware of a pattern developing around him. When the meal service began, his row was repeatedly skipped. When he pressed the call button to request service, it went unanswered for 45 minutes. When he finally got up to use the restroom, Sophie blocked his path to the first-class lavatory, directing him to use the facilities in your ticketed section, despite the economy bathrooms having long lines. Each incident was small, deniable. Each could be explained away as a misunderstanding or oversight. Together, they formed an unmistakable pattern of targeted harassment. From his cramped middle seat, Jamal observed similar treatment of other minority passengers. A young black woman was denied a blanket because they were only available for premium economy and above, yet he watched as white passengers in regular economy received blankets without question. A Muslim family's special meal requests were, unfortunately, forgotten during loading, though Jamal had seen those very meals being served to other passengers. Nearby, an elderly Asian man struggled to communicate his beverage preference to Lisa, who made no effort to understand before moving on with obvious impatience. The man's daughter, seated next to him, looked down in quiet humiliation, a familiar expression Jamal recognized all too well. Throughout these observations, Jamal documented everything meticulously on his tablet, building a comprehensive record. Sophie noticed his detailed note-taking during one pass through the cabin, her eyes narrowing suspiciously as she tried to glimpse his screen. Afterward, she and Lisa huddled at the galley, casting frequent glances in his direction. The message was clear: they had identified him as a potential problem, someone who might file a complaint. What they didn't realize was that he wasn't planning to file a complaint. He was building a case for termination, not just of individuals, but of an entire corporate culture. As the flight reached its midway point over the Pacific, Jamal's tablet chimed with an encrypted message from his executive team. They had been working diligently since his first communication, assembling a comprehensive response plan that went far beyond addressing this single incident. Have you ever experienced discrimination that made you feel powerless? Or witnessed someone being treated unfairly because of how they looked? Comment number 1 if you've ever been in a situation where you wished you could stand up against injustice but couldn't find your voice. Hit like if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity regardless of their appearance. And subscribe to see more stories of people fighting back against discrimination in unexpected ways. Now, what would you do if you suddenly had the power to change an entire system that once humiliated you? Would you seek revenge, or would you try to create meaningful change? Let's see what Jamal decides to do with his newfound leverage. Initial analysis complete, the message read. Pattern of discriminatory incidents documented across Skyline Airways. 27 formal complaints in the past year from minority passengers about first-class seating disputes. Internal metrics show minority passengers receive upgrade approvals at 40% lower rate than white passengers with identical status levels. Attached were preliminary findings from the audit team that had been quietly reviewing Skyline's operations since the acquisition. The picture they painted was disturbing. A systematic culture of preferential treatment based on race and perceived status, tacitly approved by middle management and enabled by selective enforcement of company policies. Jamal reviewed the data, memories of his own past experiences flooding back. He remembered clearly the first time he'd recognized discrimination for what it was. 10 years old, shopping with his mother at a department store, following the security guard who followed them through every aisle while ignoring white shoppers. His mother's quiet dignity as she pretended not to notice, teaching him through her example how to maintain self-respect in the face of prejudice. He thought of his college years, working 3 jobs to afford textbooks, being asked by a white professor if he was really supposed to be in this advanced class. The doubt that briefly clouded his confidence before hardening into determination to prove his worth. Then his early career, being passed over for promotions despite outperforming colleagues, always hearing the same excuses about not quite fitting the company culture, or lacking certain intangible qualities, never anything concrete that could be challenged as discrimination. Even after founding his first company, investors would often address his white CFO in meetings, assuming Jamal was subordinate despite his position as CEO. The surprise on their faces when corrected never ceased to sting. Now, decades later, with all his success, wealth, and power, a flight attendant could still make him feel like that 10-year-old boy being followed in a store. The realization crystallized something in him. This wasn't just about one humiliating incident. This was about a lifetime of them, faced by countless people without the resources to fight back. He began typing a response to his team: implement full protocol Delta. I want comprehensive background checks on all involved crew members, plus their direct supervisors and the entire chain of command. Review every customer complaint filed against Skyline in the past 5 years with demographic analysis of resolution outcomes. Prepare immediate termination paperwork for identified bad actors and their enabling management. Legal team to draft new anti-discrimination policies with actual enforcement mechanisms. He paused, considering his next directive carefully. This couldn't just be about punishment. It needed to create lasting change. Also, develop complete cultural transformation plan. New training protocols, revised customer service metrics, anonymous reporting system for passengers and staff, quarterly blind testing of service quality across demographic groups. This isn't just about removing bad employees. We're going to rebuild this airline from the ground up. Andre's response came quickly, all teams mobilized. Legal preparing documentation. HR drafting termination notices. PR developing announcement strategy. Security team will meet you at gate. ETA JFK in 5 hours 20 minutes. Jamal returned to his observation of the cabin. The contrast between how different passengers were treated had become increasingly obvious. In the rows ahead, flight attendants chatted amiably with white passengers, remembering their beverage preferences and addressing them by name. In his section, service was perfunctory at best, openly hostile at worst. He noticed Lisa now avoided his section entirely, leaving Sophie to handle all service. When Sophie did approach, she made a point of serving everyone around Jamal first, often forgetting his requests or claiming items were unavailable, only to provide them to other passengers minutes later. At one point, Jamal overheard Sophie speaking to Taylor near the galley. The guy in 34B keeps taking notes. Probably one of those professional complainers looking for free miles. Taylor glanced back at Jamal with obvious disdain. People like that are always trying to game the system. Just document everything so when he files a complaint, we're covered. The irony wasn't lost on Jamal. They were right to be concerned about documentation, just not in the way they imagined. As the flight progressed, Jamal continued gathering evidence, noting times, names, and specific incidents. He observed other passengers' reactions to the disparate treatment, some uncomfortable, others oblivious, a few openly approving. It was a microcosm of society itself, he realized. A few active participants in discrimination, many passive enablers, and a significant number who recognized the injustice but remained silent. He thought about Maxwell Whitfield III, now comfortably ensconced in seat 5A, Jamal's seat. Through his company database, Jamal had identified Maxwell as the CEO of Whitfield Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company that indeed booked substantial business travel with Skyline Airways. A quick background check revealed multiple complaints from Whitfield's own employees about hostile workplace conditions and discriminatory practices. 2 settled lawsuits for racial discrimination in the past 5 years. Birds of a feather, Jamal thought grimly. His tablet chimed again with another update from his team. They'd expanded their investigation and found something even more troubling, an unofficial VIP list maintained by certain Skyline crews, including Sophie, Lisa, and Taylor. The list contained names of passengers to be given preferential treatment, upgraded when possible, provided extra amenities, never questioned about seating. The list was overwhelmingly white, male, and included passengers with documented histories of inappropriate behavior toward staff. Conversely, there appeared to be an unofficial watch list of passengers to be scrutinized, frequently reseated, and provided minimal service. This list included a disproportionate number of minority travelers, particularly those who had previously complained about service or questioned flight crew decisions. The existence of these unofficial lists violated numerous company policies, aviation regulations, and possibly federal anti-discrimination laws. It was exactly the kind of systematic problem that couldn't be solved by simply firing a few individuals. The entire culture needed transformation. Jamal finalized his plan as the flight entered its final hours. This wouldn't just be about personal vindication. It would be about creating lasting change in an industry where discrimination had been normalized and excused for too long. As the plane began its initial descent toward New York, Jamal sent one final message to Andre: prepare for full implementation upon landing. This ends today, not just for me, but for everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, we've begun our initial descent into John F. Kennedy International Airport. The local time is 4:15 in the afternoon, and the weather is clear with temperatures around 75 degrees. We should be arriving at our gate approximately 30 minutes ahead of schedule, thanks to favorable winds. The captain's voice crackled through the cabin speakers, his tone jovial and satisfied. I'd like to thank you for choosing Skyline Airways for your journey today. Our wonderful crew has worked hard to make your flight as comfortable as possible. Jamal noted the irony in the captain's words as he observed Sophie making her final pass through the first-class cabin. She was all smiles now, leaning close to apologize to premium passengers for the unfortunate disturbance during boarding, a clear reference to Jamal's earlier confrontation. We're so sorry for any inconvenience during the boarding process, she said loudly enough for nearby economy passengers to hear. Rest assured, we always prioritize the comfort of our premium travelers. From his cramped middle seat, Jamal could see into the first-class section where Maxwell Whitfield was visibly intoxicated. He had consumed at least 6 glasses of champagne by Jamal's count, and was now slurring his words as he attempted to flirt with a clearly uncomfortable Lisa. Come on, sweetheart, I'm just asking what hotel you're staying at in New York. We could grab a drink, Maxwell insisted, his hand reaching for Lisa's arm. Lisa deftly avoided his touch with practiced precision, maintaining her professional smile. I'm sorry, Mr. Whitfield, but I need to prepare the cabin for landing. She moved away quickly, but instead of addressing Maxwell's inappropriate behavior, she joined Sophie at the galley where both cast disapproving glances toward Jamal's section. The seatbelt sign illuminated with a soft chime. Jamal secured his belt, then continued documenting the scene on his tablet. The passenger in front of him, who had kept his seat fully reclined throughout the flight despite meal services, finally brought his seat upright with a dramatic sigh of inconvenience. Through the cabin window, the New York skyline appeared in the distance, gleaming in the afternoon sun. Under different circumstances, Jamal might have appreciated the view of the city where he'd built his empire. Today, his mind was focused elsewhere. His phone vibrated with a text from Andre, in position at gate B27. Security team in place. Legal has prepared all documentation. Skyline senior management has been contacted and will meet us in the private conference room. Everything is ready. Jamal replied simply, proceeding as planned. Maintain current positions. As the aircraft made its final approach, the captain's voice came over the intercom again. Flight attendants, prepare for landing. The plane descended smoothly through scattered clouds, touching down on the runway with barely a bump. As they taxied toward the terminal, the captain made his final announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to John F. Kennedy International Airport. Local time is 4:22 in the afternoon. We've arrived ahead of schedule thanks to our excellent flight crew. On behalf of Skyline Airways, I'd like to thank our premium passengers for choosing us for your travel needs. We hope to see you on board again soon. Jamal noticed the specific emphasis on premium passengers, another subtle reminder of the airline's priorities. Around him, economy passengers began the familiar routine of gathering belongings and preparing to disembark, despite the fact that they would be the last to leave the aircraft. His phone chimed again with a message from Andre. Skyline CEO Marcus Hamilton just arrived. Clearly nervous. Claims no knowledge of incident. Executive team in holding pattern. As the aircraft reached its gate and the seatbelt sign turned off, the expected announcement came. Ladies and gentlemen, we've arrived at our gate. We ask that our economy passengers remain seated while our first class and business class passengers disembark. Thank you for your cooperation. Sophie's voice carried a hint of satisfaction as she made the announcement, her gaze sweeping over the economy cabin with barely concealed disdain. Jamal remained seated, watching as the premium passengers gathered their belongings and moved toward the exit. Maxwell Whitfield stumbled slightly as he stood, leaving behind a significant mess at seat 5A, empty miniature liquor bottles, food wrappers, and a wine stain on the seat cushion. Sophie rushed to steady him, her smile never wavering despite his condition. "Mr. Whitfield, please allow me to assist you with your luggage," she offered, reaching for his carry-on despite the fact that helping with luggage wasn't standard procedure even in first class. "You're a doll," Maxwell slurred, his hand briefly touching the small of her back in a way that made her stiffen momentarily before she recovered her professional demeanor. Jamal watched the interaction carefully, noting how quickly Sophie's boundaries shifted depending on the passenger. The same flight attendant who had treated him with open suspicion was now tolerating inappropriate behavior from an intoxicated white man simply because he held perceived status. As the premium passengers filed out, Sophie, Lisa, and Taylor gathered near the exit, their conversation just audible from Jamal's position. "God, what a flight," Sophie muttered. "That guy in economy with the hoodie kept watching everything I did. Definitely filing a complaint." "They always do," Taylor agreed. "Looking for any excuse to claim discrimination. Just document everything for HR." Lisa nodded. "I avoided his section completely. Not dealing with that headache." Their casual dismissal of legitimate concerns was revealing, the assumption that any complaint from a minority passenger was automatically frivolous, the preemptive defensiveness, the total lack of self-awareness about their own behavior. Finally, after business class had emptied, the announcement came for economy passengers to deplane. Jamal remained seated, allowing others to go ahead. He had no reason to rush. Everything was in position. As the cabin gradually emptied, Jamal gathered his belongings unhurriedly. He watched as Sophie, Taylor, and Lisa began their post-flight duties, clearly eager to complete them and leave the aircraft. None of them paid him any attention as he finally rose and moved toward the exit, the last passenger to deplane. Standing in the jet bridge, Jamal paused to send one final text to Andre, "Exiting aircraft now. Initiate Phase 1." As Jamal stepped from the jet bridge into the terminal, the scene before him unfolded exactly as planned. Andre Coleman, his chief of staff for the past 8 years, stood waiting with an expression of controlled intensity. Behind him were 4 members of Global Venture security team, all former law enforcement, positioned strategically around the gate area. To the side stood a visibly nervous group in Skyline Airways management uniforms, led by a man Jamal recognized as Marcus Hamilton, the airline's CEO. Sophie, Taylor, and Lisa emerged from the jet bridge a few minutes after Jamal, laughing among themselves as they rolled their crew luggage toward the staff exit. They stopped short when they noticed the unusual gathering at their gate. "Excuse me, Miss Carlson, Mr. Taylor, MS. Bennett," Andre called out, his voice carrying the full authority of his position. "Would you mind joining us for a moment?" The crew members exchanged confused glances, clearly trying to place Andre in their mental hierarchy of airline management. Sophie, assuming the role of spokesperson, stepped forward with her professional smile firmly in place. "Is there something we can help you with?" she asked, her tone suggesting she was doing them a favor by stopping. Jamal, who had been standing slightly apart from the group, now moved forward. "Yes, I believe you can." Recognition flickered in Sophie's eyes as she registered Jamal's face, quickly masked by a veneer of customer service politeness. "Oh, you were on our flight. I hope everything was satisfactory despite the seating misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding," Jamal repeated the word thoughtfully. "That's an interesting characterization of what happened." Sophie's smile tightened. "Sir, if you have a complaint, our customer service department would be happy to." "I don't think we need to involve customer service," Jamal interrupted calmly. "This is something I prefer to handle personally." Taylor stepped forward, his posture subtly intimidating. "Sir, we followed standard company procedures. If you have concerns about your flight experience, there are proper channels. Allow me to introduce myself properly," Jamal cut in. "My name is Jamal Washington. I'm the CEO of Global Ventures International." The name clearly meant nothing to the crew members, who maintained their defensive postures. Lisa glanced toward Marcus Hamilton, seeking guidance from the airline executive she recognized. "Global Ventures completed acquisition of Skyline Airways 3 months ago," Jamal continued. "We've been conducting a comprehensive audit of operations before making the ownership change public. Today's flight was part of that audit." The blood drained from Sophie's face as understanding dawned. Taylor's aggressive stance faltered, and Lisa took an involuntary step backward. That's not possible," Sophie stammered. "We would have been informed of an ownership change." Marcus Hamilton stepped forward, his expression grim. "It's true, Ms. Carlson. The acquisition was kept confidential during the transition period. Mr. Washington is effectively your employer." Sophie's professional mask crumbled entirely. "Mr. Washington, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Had we known who you were, that's precisely the problem," Jamal interrupted. "Your treatment of passengers shouldn't depend on whether they're your boss or a celebrity or a politician. Every passenger deserves the same respect and dignity, regardless of who they are or what they look like." Taylor attempted to recover, his tone shifting to conciliatory. "Sir, we were simply following protocol regarding seat assignments for our Diamond Elite members. There is no such protocol," Marcus Hamilton interjected, clearly trying to distance himself from the situation. "Skyline Airways has no policy of removing confirmed passengers from their assigned seats to accommodate other passengers, regardless of status level." At that moment, a commotion near the terminal entrance drew everyone's attention. Maxwell Whitfield, still visibly intoxicated, was arguing loudly with a gate agent at a neighboring gate. "Do you know who I am?" his voice carried across the terminal. "I'm a Diamond Elite member. I fly Skyline every week." Spotting the gathered group, Maxwell changed direction and staggered toward them, oblivious to the tension. "Hey! Flight crew! Tell this idiot who I am." Sophie winced as Maxwell approached, his appearance now an unwelcome complication. "Mr. Whitfield, this isn't a good time, nonsense." Maxwell slurred, throwing an arm around Sophie's shoulders uninvited. "These are the good ones. They know how to treat important customers. Not like that other gate agent." Jamal watched the interaction with calm assessment. "Mr. Whitfield, I believe you're sitting in my seat earlier today." Maxwell squinted at Jamal, recognition slowly dawning. "Oh, right. The guy in the hoodie. No hard feelings, buddy. Some people just belong in first class, you know what I mean." "I do know what you mean," Jamal replied evenly. "Though perhaps not in the way you intended." Andre stepped forward, addressing the Skyline employees. "We've been conducting a thorough audit of Skyline Airways service practices for the past 3 months. Today's flight was the final assessment before implementing organizational changes." He produced a tablet and turned it toward the group. "We've documented a disturbing pattern of discriminatory behavior throughout the airline, particularly on international premium routes. Today's incident was, unfortunately, consistent with that pattern." Lisa, who had remained mostly silent, suddenly spoke up. "It's not just us. It's company culture. We're encouraged to prioritize certain passengers." Sophie shot her a warning glance, but Lisa continued, her voice shaking. "There's an unofficial VIP list. We're told which passengers to give special attention to, and which ones to watch carefully." "Lisa!" Sophie hissed. "It's true," Lisa insisted, turning to Jamal. "I'm not saying it's right, but we're evaluated on customer satisfaction scores from premium passengers. Those scores affect our route assignments, our schedules, even our continued employment. Taylor's defensive posture had completely collapsed. The system is designed to keep certain passengers happy at the expense of others. We just work within that system. Marcus Hamilton stepped forward, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. These are serious allegations that do not reflect Skyline Airways' official policies or values. Save it, Marcus, Jamal cut him off. We have 3 months of data, hundreds of documented incidents, and testimony from your own employees. This isn't about individuals making bad decisions. This is about a corporate culture that enables and rewards discriminatory behavior. He turned to Sophie, Taylor, and Lisa. I don't believe you three created this problem, but you certainly embraced it. Your actions today weren't just unprofessional, they were cruel, discriminatory, and potentially illegal. Sophie attempted one final defense. Mr. Washington, if we had known who you were, that's exactly the point, Jamal interrupted. You shouldn't need to know someone's status or position to treat them with basic human dignity. The fact that you believe knowing my title would have changed your behavior only confirms the problem. Andre signaled to the security team, who moved forward with professional efficiency. Ms. Carlson, Mr. Taylor, Ms. Bennett, your employment with Skyline Airways is terminated, effective immediately. Please surrender your company IDs and credentials. The shock on their faces was palpable. Sophie's hands trembled as she removed her ID badge. You can't do this. The union contract has clear provisions regarding discriminatory behavior, Andre replied. All terminations will be fully documented with evidence of policy violations. You'll receive formal notification in writing, but your access to company systems has already been revoked. Maxwell, finally grasping the situation, attempted to intervene. Now wait just a minute. These people were just doing their jobs. If anyone's to blame, it's airline management for setting the policies. An excellent point, Mr. Whitfield, Jamal agreed. And one we're addressing as well. Skyline management will be undergoing significant changes effective immediately. He turned to Marcus Hamilton. Which brings me to you, Marcus. Your leadership has allowed this culture to flourish. Your metrics incentivize preferential treatment. Your training fails to address bias. Your complaint system dismisses valid concerns from minority passengers. Marcus paled. Mr. Washington, I assure you I had no knowledge of these specific incidents. Willful ignorance is not a defense, Jamal replied. Your employment contract includes specific performance metrics related to customer experience across all passenger demographics. You failed to meet those metrics for 3 consecutive quarters. As of this moment, you are placed on administrative leave pending a full review. The terminal had grown quiet, other travelers and airport staff watching the scene unfold with undisguised interest. Some had phones out, recording the confrontation. Jamal was aware of the potential public relations implications, but transparency had always been one of his core business values. This isn't just about punishment, he addressed the group. It's about transformation. Skyline Airways will undergo a complete cultural reset, starting today. New leadership, new training, new metrics, new accountability systems. Every employee, from the boardroom to the cabin, will be held to the same standard. Treat every passenger with equal dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance, status, or background. Sophie, still struggling to process her termination, found her voice again. You're destroying people's careers over one misunderstanding. This isn't fair. Fair? Jamal repeated. Was it fair to remove me from my assigned seat based on assumptions about my worth? Was it fair to humiliate me in front of other passengers? Was it fair to provide substandard service throughout the flight? Was it fair to mock me to my face and behind my back? He shook his head. This isn't about one incident or one passenger. Our audit found hundreds of similar cases. The only difference is that today, you chose the wrong passenger, not because of who I am, but because I have the power and resources to address the systematic problems your behavior represents. With a nod to Andre, Jamal signaled that the public confrontation was concluded. Security will escort you to collect any personal items from your lockers. Human resources representatives are waiting to process your termination paperwork and explain your final compensation details. As the security team led the stunned crew members away, Jamal turned to Marcus Hamilton. The executive team is waiting in conference room A. We have a lot to discuss about the future of this airline. The airport conference room had been hastily prepared for an emergency meeting. Bottled water and notepads were arranged around a large oval table, and a digital projector displayed the Skyline Airways logo on the wall screen. The contrast between the corporate professionalism of the setting and the tension filling the air couldn't have been more stark. Jamal sat at the head of the table, Andre standing just behind his right shoulder. Across from them sat a visibly shaken Marcus Hamilton, flanked by Skyline's Chief Operating Officer Patricia Alvarez and Head of Customer Experience Daniel Richardson. All three executives maintained careful neutral expressions, but their rapid eye movements and nervous finger-tapping betrayed their anxiety. "Let's be clear about what happened today," Jamal began, his voice calm but firm. A paying first-class passenger was removed from his assigned seat and relegated to economy based entirely on assumptions about his status and worth, assumptions that appear to have been racially motivated. Marcus Hamilton started to speak, but Jamal raised a hand to stop him. "Before you offer explanations or excuses, I want to show you exactly what we're dealing with." Andre tapped his tablet, and the wall screen changed to display a series of charts and graphs. 3 months of comprehensive audit data, Andre explained. Every flight, every passenger interaction, every complaint, every service recovery effort. The first chart showed passenger complaints by race compared to airline response rates. The disparity was immediately apparent. Complaints from white passengers received formal responses and compensation at nearly triple the rate of identical complaints from black or Hispanic passengers. "This isn't subjective," Andre continued. "These are your own internal metrics, analyzed without filtration or bias." The next slide showed upgrade approval rates by passenger demographics. Again, the pattern was clear. White passengers with identical status levels received discretionary upgrades at substantially higher rates than minorities. Patricia Alvarez, the COO, leaned forward. "These metrics don't necessarily prove discriminatory intent. There could be other factors, such as..." Jamal interrupted. "Frequency of travel, route preferences, booking patterns," she suggested weakly. "All controlled for in our analysis," Andre replied, advancing to the next slide. "These comparisons are between passengers with identical status levels, similar travel histories, and identical fare classes. The only variable is race." Daniel Richardson, whose entire job focused on customer experience, looked physically ill as he reviewed the data. I had no idea the disparities were this significant." "That's the problem," Jamal said. "You should have known. It's literally your job to know." The presentation continued, revealing pattern after pattern of systematic bias throughout Skyline's operations. Flight attendant assignments showed certain crews consistently requested premium international routes with predominantly white business travelers. Customer satisfaction surveys revealed that identical service issues were rated more severely when the crew was diverse. Training materials emphasized cultural sensitivity for international destinations but contained nothing about addressing bias toward passengers. "Now let's talk about today specifically," Jamal said, nodding to Andre, who switched to security camera footage from the aircraft. The video clearly showed Sophie checking Jamal's boarding pass multiple times while not verifying other first-class passengers' credentials. It captured Taylor's confrontational body language and Maxwell Whitfield's entitled behavior. Most damning was a clear audio recording of Sophie and Lisa mocking Jamal after he'd been reseated, their comments explicitly referencing his race. Marcus Hamilton watched the footage with growing horror. "Mr. Washington, I want to personally apologize for this inexcusable treatment. Those individuals have been terminated, and we will ensure Those individuals were acting within a culture you created and maintained, Jamal interrupted. They believed their behavior was acceptable because, in Skyline's environment, it is acceptable. The problem isn't a few bad employees, it's a toxic system that rewards the wrong behaviors and ignores the right ones. He leaned forward. Your metrics incentivize crew members to prioritize the happiness of certain passengers over others. Your training fails to address implicit bias. Your complaint system dismisses legitimate concerns from minority travelers. Your hiring and promotion practices have created leadership teams with minimal diversity and maximum blindness to these issues. The executives exchanged uncomfortable glances, unable to refute the accusations in the face of such comprehensive evidence. So what happens now? Patricia asked quietly. Immediate changes, Jamal replied without hesitation. Starting with leadership. Andre distributed 3 folders to the executives. These detail the terms of your administrative leave, effective immediately. You'll receive full pay and benefits while we conduct a complete evaluation of your roles in creating and maintaining Skyline's current culture. Marcus opened his folder with trembling hands. You're suspending us? All of us? Temporarily, Jamal confirmed. This isn't punitive, yet. It's necessary for a full and impartial assessment. Depending on what we find and your willingness to participate in transformation, there may be roles for you in the new organization. Daniel looked up from his folder. And if we refuse? Then you resign, effective immediately, with the standard severance outlined in your contracts, Andre replied. But without recommendations or references beyond confirmation of employment dates. As the executives processed this information, the conference room door opened. Sophie, Taylor, and Lisa were escorted in by security personnel, looking confused and apprehensive. Behind them came Maxwell Whitfield, still slightly intoxicated but significantly more subdued than before. Please sit down, Jamal instructed the newcomers, indicating empty chairs at the far end of the table. Sophie glanced nervously at Marcus Hamilton. We were told our termination processing was complete. Why are we here? Because this isn't just about termination, Jamal explained. It's about understanding and accountability. He turned to a new slide on the screen, displaying Sophie, Taylor, and Lisa's performance reviews and customer interaction metrics. Each of you has a pattern of behaviors that extends well beyond today's incident. The slide showed complaint statistics, passenger ratings divided by passenger demographics, and internal reports. The pattern was unmistakable: consistent preferential treatment for certain passengers and discriminatory behavior toward others. Sophie, you've had 8 formal complaints from minority passengers in the past year alone, all dismissed by your supervisors without investigation, Jamal noted. Taylor, you've called security for passenger non-compliance 11 times in 8 years, all involving minority passengers with valid premium tickets. Lisa looked down at the table, unable to meet Jamal's gaze. Lisa, your record shows fewer direct complaints, but you've been present for most of these incidents without intervention. Silence in the face of discrimination is its own form of complicity. Maxwell Whitfield, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke up. Look, I don't know what this is about, but I didn't ask anybody to give up their seat. I just showed my ticket and they handled it. Actually, Mr. Whitfield, you did exactly that, Andre replied, playing an audio recording of Maxwell clearly demanding my rightful seat and insisting that some people just belong in first class. Maxwell's face reddened. That's out of context. We've also reviewed your company's travel records with Skyline, Jamal interrupted. Interesting pattern there too. Whitfield Industries regularly books first-class tickets for its white executives while relegating employees of color to economy, even those of equal or higher positions. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the systematic nature of the discrimination being exposed. So here's what happens next, Jamal continued. Skyline Airways will undergo immediate and comprehensive transformation. New leadership, new training, new policies, new metrics, new accountability systems. He turned to the suspended executives. Your replacements have already been selected, a diverse team of aviation professionals with proven track records of inclusive leadership. They'll begin tomorrow. Sophie, still struggling to accept her termination, found her voice. You can't just replace everyone overnight. The union will fight this. The union has already been consulted, Andre replied. They've reviewed our evidence and agreed that the terminations are justified under their contract's provisions regarding discriminatory behavior. They're actually supportive of the changes, given the number of union members who've reported similar experiences. Jamal stood, signaling the meeting was nearing its conclusion. I believe in second chances, but I also believe in consequences. None of you created this problem alone, but all of you participated in it. How you respond now will determine whether there's a place for you in the transformed organization. He looked directly at each person around the table. Those willing to acknowledge their role, commit to change, and participate in rebuilding a more equitable culture may have opportunities in the future. Those who resist, deny, or deflect will find themselves permanently excluded from not just Skyline, but the entire Global Ventures family of companies. With that ultimatum hanging in the air, Jamal nodded to Andre, who began distributing additional documents. These detail the next steps for each of you. Security will escort you from the premises today. HR will contact you tomorrow with further instructions. As the meeting concluded and security personnel prepared to escort everyone out, Lisa suddenly stood. Mr. Washington, may I speak with you privately for a moment? Jamal considered the request, then nodded. Briefly. When the others had been let out, Lisa remained, visibly struggling with what she wanted to say. What happened to you today was wrong, she finally managed. It wasn't the first time, and if nothing changes, it won't be the last. I know, Jamal replied simply. There's an entire system, Lisa continued, her voice gaining strength. Unofficial lists, code words, signals between crew members. It's not in any manual, but everyone knows it. I've seen how passengers like you are treated, and I've been complicit by not speaking up. She took a deep breath. I don't expect to keep my job, but there are others in the company who feel the same way I do, who see the problems but have been afraid to challenge them. If you're really going to transform things, you'll need allies on the inside. Jamal studied her carefully. Are you volunteering? Yes, Lisa said firmly. What happened today opened my eyes to how I've been part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution instead, whatever that takes. For the first time that day, Jamal allowed himself a small smile. That's exactly the attitude we need for what comes next. 1 week after the incident, Jamal Washington stood at the podium in Skyline Airways corporate headquarters auditorium. Behind him, a massive screen displayed the company's logo alongside Global Ventures International's emblem. The auditorium was filled to capacity, executives, managers, flight crews, ground staff, all watching with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity as their company's new owner prepared to address them directly. Good morning, Jamal began, his voice calm but carrying easily through the space. For those who don't know me, I'm Jamal Washington, CEO of Global Ventures International and, as of 3 months ago, the owner of Skyline Airways. A murmur ran through the audience. Though news of the acquisition had spread rapidly after the airport incident, this was the first official confirmation many had received. I'd like to begin by telling you a story, Jamal continued. When I was 10 years old, my mother took me to the airport to watch planes take off and land. We couldn't afford to travel, but she wanted me to see what was possible in the world. I told her that someday I would fly in one of those planes, and she said something I've never forgotten: you can go anywhere, Jamal, if you're willing to work for it. He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. What neither of us knew then was that hard work alone isn't always enough. Sometimes the barriers aren't just financial, they're built into the systems we navigate every day. Andre stepped forward, advancing to the first slide of their presentation. It displayed the comprehensive findings of their 3-month audit, with key statistics highlighted in bold. 47% lower upgrade approval rates for minority passengers with identical status levels, 68% fewer service recovery compensations for minority passenger complaints, 89% of customer service escalations involving minority passengers resulted in security intervention rather than resolution, 0 formal disciplinary actions for crew members with documented patterns of discriminatory behavior. These numbers tell a story, Jamal continued. Not of individual bad actors, though those certainly exist, but of a system designed to perpetuate bias and inequality. He moved from behind the podium, walking to the center of the stage. 1 week ago, I experienced this system firsthand when I was removed from my assigned first-class seat to accommodate a white passenger. The incident itself was troubling, but what it revealed about Skyline's culture was far more concerning. The audience shifted uncomfortably as Jamal recounted the details of his experience. Many had already heard versions of the story through company gossip or media reports, but hearing it directly from the owner himself brought a new level of gravity to the situation. "I'm not here to shame individuals," Jamal clarified. "The crew members involved have been held accountable for their actions. I'm here to address the environment that made those actions possible, even predictable." Andre advanced to the next slide, revealing a comprehensive transformation plan with immediate, short-term, and long-term initiatives. Effective immediately, Skyline Airways has new leadership, Jamal announced. "Please welcome your new CEO, Dr. Maya Richardson." A woman rose from the front row and joined Jamal on stage. In her early 50s with short gray-streaked hair and a confident stride, Dr. Richardson had 20 years of aviation experience and a renowned reputation for organizational transformation. Dr. Richardson has assembled a diverse executive team with expertise in aviation operations, customer experience, and cultural change management, Jamal explained as 6 additional individuals joined them on stage, representing various backgrounds, ages, and ethnicities. This leadership team's first priority will be implementing our comprehensive anti-bias training program, Jamal continued. Starting next week, every employee, from the boardroom to the baggage handlers, will participate in this mandatory training. Andre advanced to details of the training program, which would include implicit bias recognition, intervention strategies, and accountability mechanisms. Unlike typical corporate diversity initiatives, this program would have teeth, ongoing assessment, practical applications, and clear consequences for non-compliance. Beyond training, we're fundamentally changing how performance is measured, Jamal explained. Flight crews will no longer be evaluated primarily on premium passenger satisfaction. Instead, we're implementing blind customer service metrics that measure consistent treatment across all passenger demographics. The new metrics included revolutionary changes, randomized body cameras for flight attendants to review service consistency, mystery passengers from diverse backgrounds evaluating experiences, comprehensive data analysis to identify patterns of preferential or discriminatory treatment. We're also establishing a passenger bill of rights with clear anti-discrimination protections, Dr. Richardson added, speaking for the first time. This will be prominently displayed on our website, in our app, and on every aircraft. Passengers will have clear reporting mechanisms for concerns, with transparent investigation processes and guaranteed responses. As the presentation continued, Jamal observed the audience's reactions. Some appeared resistant, arms crossed defensively. Others looked relieved, as if long-awaited changes were finally coming. Many seemed simply stunned by the scope and speed of the transformation being announced. "I recognize that change can be uncomfortable," Jamal acknowledged. "Some of you may be wondering why such dramatic steps are necessary. Others may be questioning whether your jobs are secure in this new environment." He paused, making eye contact with various audience members. "Let me be clear, our goal isn't to replace people, it's to transform culture. Those who embrace these changes, who commit to equal treatment for all passengers, will find opportunities to grow with the new Skyline. Those who resist or undermine these efforts will find themselves incompatible with our future direction." As if on cue, the auditorium doors opened, and Lisa Bennett entered, accompanied by several flight attendants and ground staff of various backgrounds. They joined Jamal and the new executive team on stage. "These employees have volunteered to be cultural transformation ambassadors," Jamal explained. "They'll serve as resources and support for their colleagues during this transition." Lisa Bennett, who was present during the incident last week, has been particularly instrumental in identifying systemic issues that need addressing. Lisa stepped forward, visibly nervous but determined. "What happened last week forced me to confront my own complicity in a broken system. I've spent the past 7 days documenting every unwritten rule, every unofficial practice that enables discrimination in our operations. It wasn't easy to admit my role in perpetuating these problems, but it's the only way to fix them." Her candor seemed to resonate with the audience, several members nodding in recognition or understanding. The atmosphere in the room subtly shifted from defensive to cautiously open. Dr. Richardson returned to the podium. "Change won't happen overnight. We're embarking on a journey that will take time, effort, and commitment from everyone. But make no mistake, change will happen. The skyline airways of the future will be defined by excellence and equity in equal measure." The presentation concluded with the unveiling of a comprehensive timeline for implementation, concrete goals for each department, and clear accountability mechanisms to ensure progress. As employees filed out of the auditorium, conversations buzzed with mixed reactions. Some expressed skepticism about yet another corporate initiative. Others seemed genuinely excited about the possibility of meaningful change. Most simply appeared overwhelmed by the scope of transformation ahead. Jamal remained on stage with Dr. Richardson and the new executive team, watching the departing audience. "What do you think?" he asked quietly. "About what we expected," Dr. Richardson replied. "Change this fundamental always meets resistance. But we have enough allies to build momentum, and results will convince the skeptics over time." "And the media response?" Jamal inquired, knowing that news of the incident and subsequent changes had spread rapidly beyond the company. Andre approached with his tablet. "Mixed, as anticipated. Some outlets are praising the swift action and comprehensive approach. Others are questioning whether it's an overreaction to a single incident. Social media is predominantly supportive, with #Skyline Accountability trending nationally." Jamal nodded, unsurprised. "And Maxwell Whitfield?" "His company's stock dropped 12% after videos of his behavior went viral," Andre reported. 3 major clients have already cancelled contracts, citing concerns about association with discriminatory practices. His board called an emergency meeting this morning. "Sometimes consequences come from unexpected directions," Jamal observed. As the auditorium emptied, Lisa approached hesitantly. "Mr. Washington, there's something else you should know. Sophie and Taylor have been contacting crew members, trying to organize resistance to the changes. They're claiming wrongful termination and suggesting the whole incident was exaggerated for publicity." "We expected as much," Dr. Richardson replied before Jamal could speak. "Change of this magnitude always generates backlash. We're prepared for it." Jamal looked at Lisa thoughtfully. "Are you having second thoughts about your role in this?" "No," she said firmly. "I've seen behind the curtain now. I can't unsee it, and I can't go back to pretending these problems don't exist." Jamal smiled. "That's exactly why transformation is possible. Not because of new policies or training programs, but because of people willing to recognize problems and commit to solving them." As they left the auditorium together, Jamal felt cautiously optimistic. The road ahead would be challenging, with resistance both internal and external. But meaningful change was never easy, and sometimes the most powerful transformations began with the most painful moments. The incident that had humiliated him 1 week ago was already becoming something larger, a catalyst for systematic change that would affect thousands of employees and millions of passengers for years to come. That, Jamal reflected, was the true power of his position, not the ability to fire individuals who had wronged him, but the opportunity to transform an entire industry's approach to equality and dignity. 6 months had passed since the incident that sparked Skyline's transformation. The airline, now rebranded as Horizon Global Airways, had undergone a remarkable evolution. Today marked the inaugural flight of the newly named airline, and Jamal Washington had chosen to be on board, seated in first class, specifically in seat 5A. The terminal at JFK Airport bustled with the usual activity, but there was additional excitement around Gate B27, where Horizon's first official flight would depart for Tokyo, the same route where everything had begun half a year earlier. Media representatives gathered near the gate, capturing footage of the ceremonial ribbon cutting and interviewing passengers about their expectations for the new airline. Jamal observed it all from a quiet corner, dressed in the same casual style he'd worn on that fateful day: jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie. Despite Global Venture's public announcement of the acquisition and transformation, many people still wouldn't recognize him without his business attire and executive context. This semi-anonymity gave him the perfect opportunity to experience the airline's changes firsthand, without the artificial deference his known presence would create. As boarding time approached, Jamal noticed the new gate procedures in action. The boarding announcements were delivered in multiple languages, with clear information about the process. Priority boarding was now described as available to passengers requiring assistance, families with small children, and travelers with premium tickets or elite status, language specifically designed to focus on the ticket, not the person. When his boarding group was called, Jamal joined the line, boarding pass and ID ready. The gate agent, wearing a new Horizon uniform in deep blue with silver accents, greeted each passenger with consistent courtesy. "Good morning, sir. May I see your boarding pass and ID, please?" she asked when Jamal reached the front. He provided the documents, noting how she verified them with the same careful attention she'd given every passenger before him, regardless of appearance or attire. "Thank you, Mr. Washington. You're in seat 5A. Have a pleasant flight," she said, returning his documents with a genuine smile. On board, the transformation was immediately apparent. The cabin crew, noticeably more diverse than before, greeted passengers with consistent warmth. The new uniforms featured name tags with not just names but languages spoken and years of service, small touches designed to humanize the crew and highlight their expertise rather than creating anonymous authority figures. As Jamal settled into his window seat, a flight attendant approached. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Washington. My name is Michael. Would you like a pre-departure beverage?" "Water would be fine, thank you," Jamal replied, watching carefully as Michael placed the water on a proper coaster, just as he did for every passenger in the cabin. The first-class cabin gradually filled with a diverse mix of passengers. Jamal observed the crew interactions closely, noting the consistent service standards being applied regardless of each traveler's appearance, age, or attire. What had once been exceptional treatment for select passengers was now the baseline for everyone. As the boarding process neared completion, Lisa Bennett, now Horizon's Director of Training, appeared at the front of the cabin. The past 6 months had transformed her as much as the airline. Where once she'd been tentative and complicit in a broken system, she now carried herself with the confidence of someone committed to positive change. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Horizon Global Airways' inaugural flight to Tokyo," Lisa began, addressing the first-class cabin. "Before we depart, I'd like to take a moment to share some information about our new service philosophy." She gestured to a screen that displayed Horizon's passenger Bill of Rights, prominently featuring commitments to equal treatment, respect for all travelers, and transparency in all policies. At Horizon, we believe that exceptional service isn't about who you are, it's about the experience we create together, Lisa explained. "Our commitment to you is consistent excellence, transparent policies, and dignity for every passenger." As Lisa continued her presentation, Jamal reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The transformation hadn't been easy. The initial changes had faced significant resistance, both internally and externally. Sophie and Taylor had indeed filed wrongful termination lawsuits, which were quickly dismissed when the evidence of their behavior was presented in court. Several executives had resigned rather than adapt to the new culture. Industry publications had published skeptical articles questioning whether the changes were excessive or financially sustainable. But as weeks turned to months, the results began to speak for themselves. Employee satisfaction scores rose significantly as staff reported feeling empowered by clear standards and consistent expectations. Customer complaints decreased across all demographics. Most surprisingly to industry observers, premium ticket sales actually increased, suggesting that many travelers preferred an environment of dignity and respect to one of arbitrary status hierarchies. Maxwell Whitfield had faced his own consequences. After videos of his behavior went viral, his company's board had placed him on administrative leave pending an investigation into broader patterns of discrimination within Whitfield Industries. 3 major clients had cancelled contracts, citing ethical concerns about association with the company. Maxwell himself had been forced to issue a public apology, though its sincerity was widely questioned. Lisa concluded her presentation and moved through the cabin, stopping briefly at Jamal's seat. "Everything to your satisfaction, Mr. Washington?" she asked, the question carrying layers of meaning beyond the simple inquiry. "Everything is exactly as it should be," he replied with a small smile. As the aircraft prepared for departure, Jamal noticed a young black boy, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, being escorted into first class by a flight attendant. The child wore a "traveling alone" badge and carried a small backpack covered in airplane stickers. "This is your seat right here, Jason," the flight attendant was saying, indicating the window seat across from Jamal. "Is this your first time flying in first class?" "Yes, ma'am," the boy replied, eyes wide as he took in the spacious cabin. "Well, you're in for a treat," she told him with a warm smile. "If you need anything at all during the flight, just press this button here." Jamal watched the interaction with unexpected emotion. He remembered himself at that age, face pressed against the airport windows, watching planes take off and land, dreaming of someday being aboard one. His mother's words echoed in his memory, "You can go anywhere, Jamal, if you're willing to work for it." What she couldn't have known then, what he hadn't understood until much later, was that the journey would involve not just personal achievement, but systematic change. That sometimes going where you wanted meant clearing the path for others to follow. The captain's voice came over the intercom, welcoming everyone aboard Horizon Global's inaugural flight. The safety demonstration began, featuring crew members of various backgrounds all delivering the same professional service. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Jamal glanced again at the young boy across the aisle, now looking excitedly out the window. On impulse, he leaned over slightly. "First flight?" he asked. The boy nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir. My grandmother is sick in Tokyo, so I'm going to visit her." "You'll love it," Jamal assured him. "Japan is an amazing place." "Were you nervous on your first flight?" the boy asked. Jamal considered the question thoughtfully. "A little. But mostly excited about the adventure." "That's how I feel," the boy exclaimed. "Like I'm starting a big adventure." "You are," Jamal agreed. "And there will be many more." As the plane accelerated down the runway and lifted into the sky, Jamal felt a sense of completion. 6 months ago, in this very seat, he had experienced humiliation and injustice, a painful reminder that success and achievement didn't shield him from the realities of a biased system. Today, in that same seat, he was witnessing the beginning of something new, not just a rebranded airline, but a transformed approach to human dignity. The incident that had begun as a personal affront had catalyzed changes affecting thousands of employees and millions of passengers. One moment of discrimination had transformed into a movement for dignity and respect. As the aircraft reached cruising altitude, Jamal watched the young boy across the aisle excitedly exploring the features of his first-class seat. The flight attendant approached them both with the same warm professionalism. "Mr. Washington, Jason, can I get either of you something to drink?" "Apple juice, please." Jason replied enthusiastically. "Water for me, thank you," Jamal said. The attendant returned promptly with their drinks, each served with the same care and attention. No assumptions, no preferential treatment, just consistent excellence, exactly as it should be. Later in the flight, Lisa approached Jamal's seat during a quiet moment. "Mind if I join you briefly?" she asked, gesturing to the empty seat beside him. Jamal nodded, and Lisa sat down with a tablet in hand. "I wanted to share our latest metrics with you," she said, opening a dashboard of performance indicators. "Customer satisfaction is up 17% across all demographics. Employee retention has improved by 23%. And our blind service quality assessments show consistent ratings regardless of passenger background." "And the financial impact?" Jamal asked, always mindful of business realities. Lisa smiled. "That's the most surprising part. Premium ticket sales are up 9% year-over-year. Turns out treating everyone with dignity is actually good for business." "Not surprising to me," Jamal replied. "People respond to environments where they feel valued." He glanced across the aisle where Jason was now sleeping peacefully, the adventure of his first flight having exhausted his youthful energy. "What happened to Sophie and Taylor?" Jamal asked, turning back to Lisa. "Sophie's working for a regional carrier now, much lower position. Taylor left the industry entirely. Both struggled to find employment after the videos went viral." Lisa paused. "Maxwell Whitfield's company was acquired last month after their stock continued to fall. He's no longer CEO." Jamal nodded, feeling no satisfaction in their difficulties, only recognition of natural consequences. "And you?" he asked. "Any regrets about your decision to stay and be part of the change?" Lisa looked around the cabin thoughtfully. "None. It wasn't easy being seen as the whistleblower at first. Some colleagues wouldn't speak to me. But seeing what we've built here." She gestured to the diverse crew working seamlessly together, the varied passengers all receiving the same excellent service. "This is what the industry should have been all along." As Lisa returned to her duties, Jamal reflected on the journey of the past 6 months. The transformation hadn't been perfect. There had been resistance, setbacks, and compromises. But the fundamental shift was undeniable, from a culture that valued certain people over others to one that recognized the inherent dignity of every passenger. The media had followed the story closely, with headlines evolving from "Black CEO fires crew after first-class dispute" to "Horizon Global sets new industry standard for equitable service." Other airlines had begun implementing similar changes, realizing the competitive advantage of treating all customers with respect. As the flight neared its destination, Jamal closed his eyes, remembering that day 6 months ago, the humiliation, the anger, the decision to transform rather than simply punish. One incident had created ripples affecting an entire industry. When the captain announced their final approach to Tokyo, Jamal opened his eyes to see Jason awake and once again staring excitedly out the window. "Can you see your country from up here?" the boy asked innocently. Jamal smiled. "Not from this altitude. But in a way, we're all just travelers sharing the same journey." As the aircraft touched down smoothly on Japanese soil, Jamal felt a sense of completion. The circle that had begun 6 months ago in humiliation had transformed into something powerful and positive, not just for him, but for countless others who would never know the story behind the changes they now experienced. This story teaches us that true power isn't about punishment but transformation. When faced with discrimination, Jamal could have simply fired the crew members and moved on. Instead, he recognized the deeper systemic issues and used his position to create lasting change. The lesson here is threefold. First, discrimination often exists as part of a larger system, not just individual actions. Second, those with power have a responsibility to address injustice at its roots, not just its symptoms. Third, treating all people with dignity isn't just morally right, it's good business. Jamal's experience shows that sometimes our most painful moments can become catalysts for positive change when we channel our hurt into constructive action rather than mere revenge. By transforming an airline rather than just punishing individuals, he created a legacy of equality that would benefit millions of travelers who would never know his name or story. His journey reminds us that the most powerful response to discrimination isn't just standing up for yourself, but changing the system for everyone. What's your take on this story? Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wished you had the power to change things? Or have you been in a position where you could stand up against injustice? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others find it. Subscribe for more powerful stories about overcoming adversity and creating positive change. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video with them today. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes our most painful experiences can lead to our greatest contributions to the world.